Hi, everybody. This is Tamara Childs with your November Energies reading. Happy November! So, we do have a softer energy coming in this month, which, yay for that, because October was quite a doozy, wasn't it? It was really intense. People have been going through a lot of really intense sorting and processing. It's been a very sort of psychoanalytic month for a lot of people, a lot of my clients, really digging deep. So Venus has moved into Libra, its home sign, and this is releasing some of the intensity and the conflict that we had last month. And the other special thing is that Jupiter is moving into its own sign, Sagittarius, which will further inspire us, lift us, and bring sort of a warm air to float upon. It's such a different energy, and it's been 12 years since we've had this really beneficial energy moving through the collective. So you may notice you can think back to 12 years ago at this time of year, 12 years ago. What was happening in your life and where were you beginning to learn something new? Jupiter, to me, brings in a sense of expansion, but what does that really mean? For me, it means that we are gaining wisdom. And how do you gain wisdom? It's through experience, through expanded experience. So there's some part of your life, wherever Jupiter is moving over the slice of your particular horoscope pie, that is the place where you'll begin to expand. I always think of Jupiter as if you were looking at a wedding cake with tiers. You know, it's moving to the upper tiers. It's like a spiral. This search for wisdom is never ending. And so we're on a new tier. We're going into a new phase. And this is one that's lit with fire and inspiration. It's a very different energy than the healing that came from delving deep into Scorpio energy. And especially into our wounds and the things that wound us, the things that hurt us, where we feel we've been harmed. We're moving out of that space in November. And so for the next year, we'll have Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is truth-seeking. It's looking at the line, the horizon line, and wanting to discover how good can it get? How does it get any better than this? What else is possible for you in your life? So look forward to that warm, it just reminds me of warm air that's coming up from the floor furnace. And it's something that will lift us into a new realm. It's very philosophical as well. And sometimes Sagittarius is sort of this bigger is better energy, but it might be interesting to have that. It might be interesting to experience that because fire needs air, right? And Sagittarius wants ideas, new philosophical points of view, something to learn about, a way to grow the soul. So that's the way that I think of it. So look forward to where this energy is coming into your life. By the way, I'll have a link below this for my good fortune reading, which is where Jupiter is landing in your chart as a transit. So let's see what that is for you. So November also brings in a subtle change in tone that feels more like home, community, and the instinct to nurture ourselves and others, especially at the emotional level, just really sinking into that. And this is because the nodes are moving into North Node into Cancer with the South Node in Capricorn. So we'll also be aware of the importance of easing up on ourselves and others, and just recognizing that every person has a need and a deservingness of comfort and a sense of belonging. The collective will be clearing itself of ambitions that are devoid of self-nurturing. So any place in your life where you have struggled and it's been like scraping your way up the mountain, and not having enough to eat or not having enough for you or feeling like you just have to be responsible and get it done and have a stiff upper lip, those are the energies that we're moving away from collectively as we examine this South Node. So feelings of being out in the cold or caught between a rock and a hard place will emerge in people for healing. And this new transit reminds us to come home to ourselves and to heal abandonments that have occurred through duty and taking the hard roads that actually didn't nurture us. And so this includes like internalized parent voices like the superego, hammering away at you, telling you you're not good enough and you have to keep going and that your comfort doesn't matter and it doesn't matter if you belong. And so for those of us waking up to what the voices are in our minds and our subconscious selves, this is a really important time for moving into a more caring attitude toward yourself and also others. And just know everyone's going through this because this is the shift for the collective. A lot of changes are happening in the middle of the month. We have Venus moving direct, which will feel like we can finally move forward in the things that we desire and that bring us delight and comfort and joy. And we won't be so focused on what's happened in the past and making reparations or, healing things from the past. But at the same time, we're going to have Mercury going retrograde, and Mercury will sort of fuzz up our communication system a little bit with its retrograde. But what's most important is how this is going to magnify the way you communicate to yourself, because that's what this planet is. It's about communication. It's about how you speak to yourself. And it's almost like having the hearing aid turned way up so everything's louder and all the thoughts in your head and what that person says to you, what you say to that person. So a heightened sensitivity to the mechanics of our relationships and how we communicate will be the thing that we're reviewing. And, I think it could get a little interesting around the middle of the month and through the end of November, because I think we're going to really have to slow down and look at the fine print in our communicating with ourselves and with others, because there may be just this sense that we have to follow our intuitive knowing rather than logic as far as being able to even understand someone else's thinking process or even our own. So just there is that influence this month, so just pay attention to that. So many things are changing, especially with Jupiter moving. I feel like this is such a wonderful, beneficial shift for all of us. So just pay attention to how you start to feel around the middle of the month. You'll be noticing some changes in how you feel. So my reading for November, this is a time of, it's funny that this is the month where the clocks have changed. We've changed the time, the lighting is different, our bodies are feeling different, and there's this indication that we should really just hang out in the space and just heighten our awareness, like turn up the volume on our awareness of what everything means for us without necessarily needing to act right away on all of our impulses. Because there's a note here that we're meant to move to a higher level in at least one, possibly two areas of our lives, and we're reluctant to do that because we feel like we just can't. So if there's a part of your life where you feel like the can't is coming up, like I just can't do that, it's just not possible, the guidance is to turn in a new direction. So say you've been looking at something from the same vantage point over and over again. It's almost like looking at a chair that's set in a certain place in your living room and you just don't like it there. It's not good feng shui, but you refuse to see it in a new space. This would be a month to actually move the chair to another space so that you can show yourself subconsciously that you can actually make that change. I'm just using the chair as a really minor example for what I'm talking about. I'm talking about much bigger shifts for each of us. I'm talking about a leap up in consciousness. This is also really supported by the Jupiter transit that wants us to gain wisdom, and that is the mission of Jupiter, is to teach and to learn. So where are you feeling trapped or creating trapped energies in your attitudes in particular, what I'm getting, that are not allowing you to see that you are a higher consciousness than you think you are. You are the consciousness of more money, if that's what you desire. You are the consciousness of a new relationship, if that's what you want. You are the consciousness of receiving support and love in your life rather than feeling, for example, abandoned or orphaned or somehow out in the cold. This is a time that's supporting us in really noticing that we are the only ones powerful enough to hold ourselves back. And November is really calling on that and saying, Watch your moves. Watch how you move through your world and through your days. Stop and pause and notice how you're moving. Are you moving through the same paces mentally and emotionally when you think of people, when you think of situations, when you think of yourself? Are you keeping yourself trapped? Because it's like it's like we're trapped in a cobweb of our own making. This is also a time when, boy, there's so much in this reading for November that has to do with moving to a higher level. And the way you move to the higher level is to harness things from the inside. So if, for example, you are feeling like you don't have the courage to move to this higher level, or you don't have the courage to make an actual change in your life, but you've been thinking about it and then the emotions are keeping you trapped and keeping you backward, really think about embodying what that courage would look like to you. And this is something I do with clients all the time. You want to give that courage an embodiment. It could be a tiger, it could be a leopard, it could be a bear, it could be anything that seems like it's just this very courageous gut level energy that would give you what you need to move forward. This is a time when, again, I think a lot of us are going to be sitting on the edge of our seats, sitting on the edge of a lot of major decisions, things that we are really wanting to think through carefully. And when I was meditating before doing this reading for November, I was really just feeling like we are all inside this giant clock, this beautiful timepiece of the universe. And as we sit in this timepiece, we have to utilize things like patience. And I'm not saying that we don't have any free will, but I am saying that it's as if the higher aspect of ourselves has agreed with the universe to be inside this clock and let the collective slowly move us through these different energies and see how we feel about being in a new Jupiter transit. How do we feel about our own love natures as Venus moves forward? So it's not like we have no power in the situation. We have a lot of power, but we don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. And I feel like November is saying, why don't you bring something new into this new phase? So take some stock of how you move through your days. What energies are you actually being each day that are either causing repetition in what you're experiencing or bringing something new in? And I always like to say that when we're trying to create changes, especially big changes, think of it more as moving your inner dial by 1%. So that would mean, in practical terms, that if you're trying to quit coffee, you would not necessarily quit it outright, but maybe you would have a smaller cup. Or maybe you would substitute something for your second cup of coffee, so you're only having one and then a substitute. And that's the 1-degree shift that is being called for. I don't feel like we are in a universe that is absolute in terms of saying, if you can't be a millionaire right now, then you never will be, if that's your goal. And I'm not saying that should or shouldn't be your goal. It's just one idea. It's about taking the very next step and asking, what energy is that for you? What energy would that be? Or the energy of letting go of resentments and anger, or letting go of a grudge that's really long term. What energy could you take that does shift that, where you're not thinking the old thoughts about the grudge and you're not always in the same space? Because with 1-degree shifts, we are actually turning the clock. And we are actually moving completely out of that space within a few degrees of just making a new choice, a new decision in your energy. So I know this is kind of deep. It kind of moves into the sphere of, I don't want to say self-analysis, but it is about introspection. And I do think there's a strongly introspective feeling coming in to November, especially as the light is waning and we have the end of daylight savings time. And we are moving into a time where we are examining the wisdom within us. So I'm very grateful for this new Jupiter transit, and I'm wishing you a wonderful November. I would love your comments or questions below. Please do subscribe to the channel. Feel free to like it and share, and comment below. I would love to know how you are experiencing this shift, and you may only be able to comment at the end of the month after you've started to see how these energies are working on you. But whatever happens, just be patient with you and let go of the self-limitation. Let go of limiting beliefs this month. There's so much support for that, especially with the Jupiter moving into Sagittarius. So that's all for now. Have a wonderful month, everyone, and I will talk to you soon.